We've been really bad at the marketing and communications. I mean, who wants to go to another academic or scientific talk about sustainability? And on the other side of the spectrum, who wants to be scared shitless that the world's ending? I don't want that either. I mean, yes, both things exist, but let's exist somewhere in the middle where we're doing this for future generations. We're the future generation they were talking about. It's us. We're frogs in a boiling pot, and we've forgotten that we're here now.
Right? You choose to put your energy where you know it's going to go somewhere, and I think that's really important to not burn out. So thank you for that.
Actually, creating a warm and engaging mechanism for your podcast, consider Green Tone as a suggestion that combines an upbeat and inviting spirit without any background music. Welcome to Tangelic Talks, your go-to podcast from Tangelic, where we dive into the vibrant world of clean energy, development, sustainability, and climate change in Africa. We bring you inspiring stories, insightful discussions, and groundbreaking innovations from the continent making waves in the global community. Tune in and join the conversation toward a brighter, greener future. Let's get started.
Welcome to Tangelic Talks, a podcast at the intersection of energy, equity, and empowerment with your co-host Victoria Cornelio and myself, Jensen Cummings. In today's episode, we talk why everything you think is sustainable isn't. With John Pabon. John is a sustainability author, consultant, and content creator, and the founder of Fulcrum Strategic Advisors. John is also the author of Sustainability for the Rest of Us, your no bullshit 5-point plan for saving the planet, and the great greenwashing, how brands, governments, and influencers are lying to you. John, thanks for being with us.
Welcome.
No, thank you so much for having me. Thanks.
All right, so kind of leaned into over sensationalizing the title of this episode, as your books also have kind of leaned into that. So I felt empowered to do so, but also kind of, it's a little bit of eco theater, which is part of what you're calling out as well. So maybe I was clickbaiting a little bit there, but I want to start from a place of like, hey, let's be a little audacious. We have to kind of shake people loose of their foundations, their preconceived notions, their expectations, or they're just accepting what they're being fed quite often. So am I overstating that? Is everything we know about sustainability?
No.
It isn't? Where are we at? Give us a little bit of a temperature take here.
Yeah, no, I think first on the sensationalization of things and the clickbaity thing, I think we need to do more of that because we've been really bad at the marketing and communications. I mean, who wants to go to another academic or scientific talk about sustainability? And on the other side of the spectrum, who wants to be scared shitless that the world's ending? I don't want that either. I mean, yes, both things exist, but let's exist somewhere in the middle where we can actually not
reach.
My big thing is we shouldn't be going after the 1% that already know they should be doing something and are doing something. It's the 99% of people who don't want to do anything, haven't been convinced yet, and are sort of scared to get started. Those are the ones we need to be talking to. So speaking their language, I think is absolutely where we need to go to. Now, is everything messed up? Is it all a big lie? No, I think there's a lot of misunderstanding. I think 75% of what people think they understand about sustainability, and we can even talk about what that term means, is a misunderstanding or a confusion. And we should own that as sustainability professionals of doing a bad job at not communicating it better. So at the end of the day, again, it comes back to the communications and how we've not been the best at the marketing side of things.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Everything you just said was very refreshing to hear. I really appreciate that. We need to speak a language that our audience also speaks. We talked about this even before we started recording, said it on the show. Victoria and I talk about it all the time. This podcast has to be a human conversation. I can't go through another podcast or a webinar or something that's just somebody reading a white paper or a bunch of slides. I'm bored to tears, and everybody else is. And I'm professionally in the space, and I'm tuned out. So what do you think about the average person? They have no interest. They are completely glazed over. And honestly, it starts creating resentment. And you're pushing versus pulling them in. So I appreciate that. All right, Victoria, get us back on track. What do we need to talk about? Sustainability? Do we need to have John give us a little definition, or where do you think we need to go from here?
With words like sustainability, if we're going to take them literally, they literally just mean doing something for a long time. So if we're going to take it at face value, let's do that. But I'm more interested in what you said about communications and the communication problem. Just how I explain sustainability right now, should I have been more clear? Was there a better way to do that? The language that we're using, do we need to make more examples? Do we need more stories? how do we better communicate that? Because I say it as someone in the space where I'm like, well, duh, that's what it is. But how do we get there? How do we bring in people that are maybe not as clued in?
Yeah, I think it's, and I don't want to be sort of to exaggerate the point, but I think it might be a little dangerous not to define things because then people are going to gladly enter the conversation, but you're all going to be speaking about slightly different things, and that's much more concerning than very different things, right? Because the different interpretations. So you're spot on though with the sustainability understanding of things for the long term. I think if we're speaking to an audience of professionals or people in the space, that's easy. We all sort of know. But if you were to go to the street and ask 5 people to define sustainability, you're going to get 100 different understandings of what you're talking about. And for most of us, I think, at least in the space, we understand sustainability is more than hugging the trees and saving the polar bears. It's a catch-all term for anything that does lead to that long-term social and environmental and planetary impact. But for the layperson, they're going to hear sustainability and automatically think, oh, environment. And yeah, that's a part of it. It gets the most, the lion's share of the PR, but that's such a small portion. And the reason I emphasize that being a small portion is if you're a person and you want to do something and maybe you don't care about the environment. I'm not an environmental scientist. There's plenty of people that are doing that. Honestly, I don't care about the environment. I'm speaking personally as me. It's fine. I know there's people handling that. I care more about the people side of sustainability. But if I'm a layperson and I don't even know that relates to sustainability, then I'm going to think, well, there's nothing I can do. Forget it. So I think the more we sort of extrapolate out what this means and how it is so broad, people can say, hey, I'm passionate about that. Hey, I have a skill in that. I can do something about that. Let me join in the fight instead of sitting on the sidelines. So they found their reason in. So I think that's why these definitions at the base level of what we're talking about, especially for I use lay people. I've used that so much in the last 2 minutes, and I feel terrible saying that. But it's true. People that don't quite know exactly what we're talking about, just to explain it for them. But those of us that are all friends and have been in this fight for a very long time, I think we can be a little more forgiving with having to do definitions and whatnot.
Let me think about this from this perspective. We just turned sustainability into a monolith, and it's not. And maybe moreover, and maybe more importantly, have we turned the audience into a monolith that either you're in or you're out, that there's no gray area, that there's no gradient where we can come in, where we need access points, right? We need entry points. We need an on-ramp for some of that. So how are you starting some of those types of conversations?
It's the monolith example. I think the illusion is so spot on. I don't think it's the monolith of sustainability as a concept. I think it's the monolith of who we have representing us to the world, the poster children of sustainability. And if you think about the traditional poster child of the sustainability movement, it's the greenie, the hippie, the Greenpeace person hanging off the side of a whaling ship doing very extreme things. It's Extinction Rebellion, it's Just Stop Oil. These are the ones that get obviously the lion's share of the PR and the news traction, right? Because they're front and center and they're very loud, and that's fine. We need that. Is it still fit for purpose today? We needed that at the start of the movement back in the 1960s where nobody was paying attention. But I would argue that today, people are paying attention. You can't get away from issues around sustainability, the environment, and society. The issue now is, as you mentioned, what's the on ramp? Right? How do we get people involved? It's no longer, if we use marketing terms, it's no longer about driving impressions, getting eyeballs on things. We have that. It's converting people. It's getting people to do something. So the more extreme we take the examples of, hey, this is sustainability, these are our poster children, the less likely you're going to have the majority of people who are having a hard enough time just getting off their couch to think that they can get involved. So the monolith is how we represent ourselves. So I think we need to do a much better job of presenting and as we're framing this today from the human perspective and showing that the three of us, we look like pretty normal human beings, right? Like I showered this morning. You all probably, I don't know, sort of normal. You all probably showered. You're not hanging off the side of a whaling ship. More power to the people that do. But the majority of people in the fight, the struggle to build a better future,
Yeah.
we're just like everybody else.
Facts.
No, and I'm a big believer in that human approach because I've always said we saw it during COVID when we were all inside, the earth started flourishing again, right? So a lot of times when we talk about sustainability and the climate crisis as a whole, we're basically talking about, oh, we're going to be uncomfortable. The earth is probably going to be okay as it has been for, forever, but we're probably going to be really uncomfortable. And I think a lot of the things that you're talking about also tie into social justice and consumer rights, because if a consumer is better informed, then they can, join the fight in an easier entry point. But then you're asking someone who is dealing with all these things from, the social systems that we live in, to go out of their way and buy produce that was made in the garden of their neighbor, the blah blah blah, like all this stuff. So how do we make it easier? How do we talk to a consumer that is going through all these struggles at the same time of having to worry about the world burning?
Yeah, I didn't come up with this, so I can't take credit for it, but it's something I've really tried to implement as much as possible in my thinking and the way I approach things, is that you can do anything, but you can't do everything.
Mm.
I'll say it again. You can do anything, but you can't do everything, right? We're armies of one, but I think as altruists, as people who care, we have the burden on our shoulders like we're Atlas, like we're just trying to do it all. Like if I think about myself, I go outside, and the second I step outside, I want to adopt every stray dog, feed every homeless person, go build a house on the weekends, go read to the elderly. How am I supposed to do that? And as consumers, how are we supposed to do everything that we think we're supposed to do? And have we even taken a step back and asked ourselves, is that actually making the biggest difference, or are we just doing things out of a performative sort of nature? So it's really important to remind people that you're not an army of one. There are billions of people that are trying to do the right thing. So pick that lane and almost be heartless in staying in that lane. And it's something that takes a long time to get psychologically into. But I think for me, I've picked my lane. I know where I'm contributing my passion and my expertise to the fight for a better future, and I don't do anything else. And people look at me maybe from the outside and go, "God, John's a terrible human being." But no, I know what I'm doing, and I know that I only have so much to give because Lord knows, we push shit uphill every time we step out of bed. So why add even more stress to that? So it's about picking that lane, finding that passion point, and really being just so committed to that, knowing that there are others that can do it. Now, how do we communicate that to the general consumer who is just overwhelmed with all that information? It's just that it's an education process, and it is a slow one. And I think getting away from some of these adages that we've somehow adopted into what we do, that somebody has to do everything, or the one that drives me up the wall, and we hear this even at sustainability conferences all the time, is, oh, we're doing this for future generations. We're the future generation they were talking about. It's us. We're frogs in a boiling pot, and we've forgotten that we're here now. Like it's not a future thing. Like we're experiencing this now. But again, that analogy of the frog in the boiling pot, we don't know this stuff is happening. But if you take a step back and you look at the news, it's all over the place. And I think certainly if we're looking at it through an intersectional perspective, and that was a big word for a very human conversation, but people in the developing world have been experiencing the impacts of climate change for decades, and it's just now reached the developed world. So we're supposed to pay attention, but at least we're paying attention.
Yeah, it's something, right? Crumbs. And I think it's also, I like how you said it.
That's all we get.
I like how you said it about, it sounds like pick your fight, right? You can't do it all. But then shifting perspectives to the other side of this conversation, we talked about consumers. You work with companies. So, what are most common misconceptions that companies have about sustainability when they say, okay, we're going to go green, we're going to do the thing? We can hear that people want us to do something. So, okay, draft the sustainability framework. Let's do it.
It's the same as a human, individuals, consumers, but it's the same with companies, that whatever you're going to do needs to be genuine. It can't be performative. And I think that's where they trip up 9 times out of 10, is they do it because they think they have to, or they do it without any semblance of strategy. And the reason I work with companies is not because I'm a sellout, although plenty of people say I am. It's because I genuinely feel, if you look at the three biggest stakeholders, so you have government impacting sustainability. I mean, most governments have kind of washed their hands of the whole thing, let's be honest.
Yeah.
You have individual consumers and normal people, and that's fine. But we can only do so much given the scale of the issues that we're facing, right? There's a limit to that. So the private sector, corporations, have access to resources, capacity, people power that governments are not going to use and individuals just don't have. So I think there's a lot of potential with them, and those companies that are doing the right thing, and they're a very small handful, but the ones that are have made such a massive positive impact on the planet and society that it's mind-boggling. So we need to get more companies doing the same thing. But back to your question, where they trip up is they try to do it performatively. They're not looking at it strategically, or they're not looking at it genuinely. They're saying, oh, this is what people want me to do. not what I think I should do. And there's so many ways to fix that in a way that is genuine to the company, that is going to be beneficial to their bottom line, which in a capitalist society is what they care about, but also is going to be extremely beneficial to the planet and society. You just have to get them thinking a little more strategically about it.
The companies that are both doing good, trying to do good, or capitalizing on the green opportunity that is present right now. How do you think about that from the level of, if a company is saying they're doing 1,000x good, but they're doing 5x good, is 5x worth it because it's moving the needle? Or do they need to be put on a spit and roasted because they're selling at 1,000x and saying this is where we're at? How do you kind of evaluate that, and how do you grade that?
My big thing I always remind companies is that no consumer in their right mind expects a company to be perfect. At the end of the day, they just don't want to be lied to. And that's what it sort of comes down to. I know Amazon is an awful, awful company. I know they do terrible things and they're having such an awful impact on the planet. I mean, Bezos just got married in Venice, and you saw what happened with the reception to that. It's not a great one. The dress wasn't great either, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But like, I know you're bad. Don't pretend you're good. But where you are doing good things, let me know about it. I want to know, because I think, at least from a professional's perspective, that's going to encourage other companies to try to be good. But don't try to pull the wool over my eyes and act like I'm a moron. Like, I know that you're doing bad things. So from a company perspective and a positioning perspective, getting them to be out and loud and proud about the good stuff that they're doing to encourage others to do good, but at the same time recognizing and being honest that, hey, these are our barriers, these are the things we need to fix, and this is what we're trying to do. Or, hey, we're not going to get to that right now because we have all these other things. That's okay. I can get behind that. That's fine. But it's about getting them to be open and honest and what I call radically transparent. Now, are they going to do that? No. And what we're experiencing right now is sort of a backlash against talking about anything sustainable. Greenhushing is the term, and I hate to add more to the list of terms that we use, but greenhushing, where a company just won't talk about it at all, even if they're doing the right stuff, because they're worried about activists in the media coming out and picking them apart. And you know what? You pull a thread long enough and hard enough, you're going to find something wrong. So getting consumers and companies to really say, hey, we're not perfect, but at least we're trying, I think is, at this stage of the game, the only crumb we're going to be able to get out of a lot of corporate actors.
I see that. And I think there's also something, I see this, for example, in influencer marketing or celebrities, where it's like, oh, they should speak up, they should be saying something, blah, blah, blah. And then when they say something, it's like, oh, they didn't say enough, they didn't do this, they didn't do that. I can imagine with a company, there is a
There's a balance to that, right? Like,
right.
if you think about it from the influencer perspective, like everything going on in, whether it's in with the Israel-Palestine conflict, or it's with the ICE raids in the United States, particularly. I mean, I do a lot on TikTok. I'm constantly online on TikTok. A lot of the creators that are in Los Angeles were being called out for not saying things against the ICE raids, because a lot of them are from immigrant families. So why wouldn't you? Because obviously they want to protect their pockets, right? Of course, we get that, but there's sort of that special moment where you can come out and you can be genuine and talk about your impressions and feelings about things. But that's a fleeting moment, because the ones that came out after that pressure started to go, people go, well, you're disingenuous now because you're only doing it because we told you to. So I mean, it all comes back down to actually being genuine and what's in your heart of hearts. Are you saying this because you mean it, or are you saying this because you're protecting your bottom line?
Yeah.
You have like a nanosecond there, huh? Wow.
and and I mean, you have to be smart about it. And I'm not saying this in a flippant way to just to say, capitalize on these opportunities, although of course with any sort of marketing that's what you're trying to do. But again, just be honest with people. And if you don't care about the ICE raids and you're from an immigrant family, just say that. That's okay too. I mean, it's not okay, but at least you're honest with me. I know where you stand.
You're honest, yeah.
I can unfollow you.
It gets hard because there's a point where you stop being an individual and you become this almost like other entity, right? A company is a different entity, even though it is staffed by individuals and run by an individual. And I think this separation that a lot of people feel is, well, I'm going to put the blame on them because they are more and they have more power. They are not individuals anymore. They're organized and they have the resources and this sort of stuff. So when it comes to consumers, or people who take on TikToks and influencers, how much power do we actually have to push for sustainable practices? And are we placing too much responsibility on individuals in this case?
To the second part of your question, I think we do place too much responsibility onto individuals to have the burden of changing the world. We have a responsibility, absolutely, through our actions and what we do. But I think, again, the majority of the pressure should be on the corporate actors. And even if the corporate actors come out and say, hey, we're not doing enough, it's up to us to sort of pressure them to do more. Now, how do we do that? And had I said this to myself 5 or 10 years ago, I would have laughed and called myself stupid. But I've really come to embrace this idea that speaking with your pocketbook, with your dollars, with your cents, and where you spend your money has such a massive impact. I don't know why it took me so long to realize this, especially given I work with corporations, that I know the impact, the way spending habits have on corporate strategy. So of course, the way people spend money is going to impact whether a company wants to be quote unquote good or just go about doing things as they always done. So it's a very important thing. Now, what does that require? It requires research. Oh my God, research. And it requires probably spending a little bit more money at the till, which in these economic times, nobody has. I understand that. I don't want to do research and I care. I'm in the profession, but the last thing I want to do is whip out my phone every time I go to the grocery store to figure out, oh God, should I buy from this company or not? So I get that 99% of people are definitely not going to do that. But take a small step, do a bit of research before you go to the store and start to make those incremental changes that are eventually going to have this tidal wave shift in boardrooms where they're devising their corporate strategies. It absolutely makes a difference. Even, just a small switch will eventually reach a boardroom and they will change their ways.
It's a pebble in the pond.
It sounds trite. It sounds trite, but it's true.
Yeah.
I see that. Margaret Mead, what'd she say? That don't underestimate a small group of individuals change the world. It's the only thing that ever has. Paraphrasing there, but like that ripple in the pond, that butterfly effect. I definitely am a big believer in that. It gathers mass as it moves through population.
For people that are listening, absolutely. For people that are listening, they're probably going, but that's not enough. That's probably the natural instinct. I'm just kind of thinking that through this conversation, but that's not enough. We need to do it all now. It needs to be faster. And God, I wish it was as easy as flipping a switch. We'd all be out of a job. We wouldn't be talking right now if it was that easy, but this is not. And I think going back to these misunderstandings of what saving the planet and society is, a lot of times we think that it is as easy as just flipping a switch, is as easy as doing this today and we're all going to be living on a kibbutz tomorrow. And that was never the intention. And it was never the reality. But I think this is the mindset people have. And if people have that mindset that, oh, we're not doing enough, it's not fast enough, or we haven't done it yet, then why am I going to get involved if this is such a painful process? So flipping that switch and, so to speak, and getting people to realize that this is a slow, incremental sort of crumb by crumb by crumb process. And we're not going to see the impact of the work we do necessarily in our lifetimes, and we have to be okay with that. And I think that's something that is a very difficult thing to sit with, but something that we're really going to have to get better at communicating, that we're doing this, going back to this future generations thing, but we're talking about like future generations.
Yeah. No, for sure. And I think what you said earlier about it is just a process, of course, but there's also that point where you're saying, just talk genuine, just be genuine. Don't try to, pull one on me. So how do we believe them then? Because they've done it so many times. How can the public distinguish between genuine sustainability efforts or strategic greenwashing, especially when both often use the same language, same imagery, there's the same sentiment there?
It's a great question. I think the biggest thing to do is really trust your gut. Number one, always trust your intuition. If something seems a little fishy, it probably is. Like, we don't even need to get into the specifics of how greenwashing materializes in the marketing and comm space. If it sounds wrong, find another product somewhere else. But if you're looking for really tactical things that you can do, absolutely there are ways to do that. There are certification regimes that exist. So if you go to the grocery store, a lot of times you'll see, like, especially in the coffee or tea section, a little tree frog on a box that is from the Rainforest Alliance, and it's a really great certification that says, hey, this company is doing their best to be good for the planet and society. There are plenty of others, but even with that, be cautious, because sometimes, and this is one of the things I realized in researching the great greenwashing, marketing departments have created their own little stamps that look like they're genuine and they're not at all. So that's absolute greenwashing. But there are other things, like it's if you see a lot of fluffy language or a lot of statistics or scientific jargon, that's meant to confuse. It's not meant to impress. So that's a really, a thing to look out for. If there are statistics that have no rationale in anything, if something says it is 50% better for the planet, I mean, give me a break. What does that mean? So avoid those sort of things. But the biggest is in a field that's called semiotics. So semiotics is just the way that symbols and colors denote meaning.
Yeah.
And so companies that greenwash do this all the time. Like, it's the green package.
Yeah.
It's the cute picture of the forest. It's the car advert with the car driving through a pristine forest. Like, these are meant to be slick and to denote a meaning, even if they're not being explicit about it. So be really cautious when you see things like that, because 9 times out of 10, they're probably greenwashing, which we didn't cover that. Greenwashing is when a company lies to you that says they say they're sustainable when the truth is probably not as altruistic.
Our audience has been greenwash to death with how much we've been talking about it. But anybody catching this episode for the first time, yeah, greenwashing is a real problem, and it's become a real moneymaker as well. So I want to touch on this for a minute. I think a lot about the message versus the messenger. And so often one or the other is really easy to attack for a lot of the reasons that we've been talking about in this. I think about somebody like Greta Thunberg. Was that really good for environmentalism, or was it really bad? Did we put a big target on somebody because of who they are and what they're saying? So I think about that a lot. I always go to this approach called the cool uncle approach. That's always my goal. I'm not that cool, but I have an actual uncle. My uncle Rick is the coolest guy in the room always. Rolls in a Harley, no matter where he goes, right? That guy. And I think about this concept of eating your vegetables. If you're a kid, eat your vegetables. Your parents tell you, your doctor tells you, your teachers tell you, worst idea ever. Your cool uncle tells you, best idea ever, right? And so how do we think about the message versus the messenger, and where is your attention when it comes to how you're trying to carve those out and disseminate them, and then look at them from kind of your perspective of having a little bit of trepidation or caution with believing the message or the messenger, depending on how you're thinking about it?
Yeah, we have to be so much better at marrying the two, because it is so important. We are in a, like we spoke about at the beginning, we're in a comms war right now, a marketing and messaging and positioning sort of battle to win hearts and minds. God, that's very militaristic of me, but that's sort of where we are. And we talked about the activists, as the traditional activists, as being the poster child for the movement, and I can't think of a worse poster child to have for a modern sustainability movement. I can't. The second I heard news that Extinction Rebellion was going defunct and they were stopping things, I was so happy, because that was probably the worst thing. And if I'm going to be conspiratorial for a second, and I'm not, Just Stop Oil and Extinction Rebellion, I think they're psyops, honestly. And I don't use that language lightly. I think they're funded by the oil companies. And the only reason I say this is because, again, in the research for the Great Greenwashing, I found that oil companies, in their attempts to be even more slick at greenwashing, they're funding front groups and lobbying groups. So why wouldn't you take sort of the next logical step and say, hey, they're funding groups that look like on the surface they're doing good for the planet or trying to be activist groups, but in reality discrediting the movement. So I would be very cautious about a lot of things like that, but we have to be so much better at marrying that message with the messenger. I love the way you put that, and the cool uncle, of course, is so important. And I don't know, I'd like to think of myself as the cool uncle, I suppose, sometimes in the sustainability world. I appreciate that. I think one of the, especially through my writing, what I try to do is approach this as a normal human being. I'm not an academic. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an activist. I'm just one of everybody else. And so one of the highest compliments I can get from people when, after they've read my books, is that, hey, it was just like having a conversation with someone.
Love.
That's it. That's all we're trying to do, is just have a conversation. I'm not trying to proselytize unless the audience wants it. I'm not trying to convince you to do one thing or the other. I'm just trying to get you to think a little bit differently. And if I've done that, my job's done, because that little kernel, you're going to take it and it's going to grow in your brain. And then, before you know it, you're going to be doing something good. And that's success for me. And it's the same in the corporate world. When I work with clients, it's the same sort of thing. I'm not going to bang my head against a wall trying to convince you to do something. And honestly, one of the reasons I went independent as an independent consultant is because I can fire clients. If you're not going to do it,
Yes.
fine. I have more work that I need to do with other people who are going to do it. I don't need to work with you if I'm going to have to constantly be, justifying why we need to do this stuff. So see ya, I'll go work with this person instead. Not that it's that easy. If anybody's going into consulting, it's not. But it's a nice sort of space to get your head around, because there are plenty of people, plenty of organizations that are doing the right thing that need the help to be even better.
Wow.
Love that. John, it's the number one thing I learned in my own consulting path in like the food world. When I learned that I could fire a client, like changed everything, changed everything completely. So
The power dynamics, yes. Don't do it often, but if you have to, do it.
And I think it's really important because it ties back to what you said about choosing your fight, right? You choose to put your energy where you know it's going to go somewhere. And I think that's really important to not burn out. So thank you for that.
yeah, John, before and we're out of time as always. We never have enough time, but that's why we always stick around with our guests to make sure we get a little Q&A. So we're going to get a little deeper into this. I have a very important question, John. Are we in a simulation?
I said 5 minutes ago, I'm not conspiratorial.
I think you just glitched it.
Did I really?
You went you went a little conspiratorial. You went hearts and minds. I thought shock and awe, and then I'm like, are we in a simulation? That's how my brain just completely went off the rails.
No, I don't think we're in a simulation, but God, if we are, who's running this thing? Because they're as demented as they come.
It's like Men in Black. It's the kid with the magnifying glass.
100%. We are all in Squid Game right now, and we just don't know it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pocket full of marbles. That is all that we are.
Yes.
All right, everyone. That's all the time for this part of the video cast. Again, go to tangeliclife.org so you can check out a little bit more content. We are not letting John go. We got a little bit more to touch on. We'll get into a little bit more specifics. Probably going to call out a couple companies. Maybe they're doing good. Maybe some that you need to watch out for. Definitely check that out. But we've been talking about sustainability for the rest of us. That's what it really came down to. For all of us who aren't academics, who aren't reading white papers and doing webinars that are so dense that nobody can understand it, even those putting them on. And we appreciate John for guiding us a little bit, illuminating some small corner of this monolith of sustainability that somehow we've concocted. So we appreciate that. John, thanks for being with us.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much.
Let's talk power, let's talk change. From rural lights to brighter days. Equity rising, voices strong. We're building tomorrow where we all belong. Tangelic Talks, energy, equity, pride. Empowering the world, side by side. A spark becomes a fire, a vision that's true. Together we rise, it starts with you.